You are listening to Women in the Building podcast, a podcast by the Aurora Tech Award, which is the global award for female founders in emerging markets. My name is Bella, and I'm the head of the award and the host of this podcast. So why did we create this podcast? Well, because speaking to so many female entrepreneurs, you told me that a lot of the content out there, whether it's podcasts, books, Y Combinator content, it's great, but it's not that helpful to you and the context you're building in, right? So each episode, we bring together 3 different guests talking about the problems that you've told me. You're going to hear about everything from being a founder and a mother, building a fintech company where most of what you need doesn't actually exist, and navigating and raising in economies where maybe the currency changes every other week. We cover it all. Today's episode is about building a company whilst also being a mother. So, if you are a mother or thinking about becoming one, this episode is for you. And yes, motherhood changes everything. And yeah, it is hard. But this episode isn't about the struggle as a setback. It's actually about how motherhood can become a superpower. From founding because of a maternal crisis, to building the tools for other moms and raising capital whilst also raising toddlers. These are the stories that you'll hear today. And every single founder on this episode says the same thing. They wouldn't have built the businesses that they have had they not become a mother. We're not just talking about it. We're living it. And yes, it did take us forever to schedule this recording because founders who are mothers are very busy people. But we managed, and with that in mind, I'm super excited to introduce our first guest, Aashika Elea Abraham.
Hi ladies, I'm Aashika. I'm the founder of MAMMA-MIYA. It's essentially an app that helps busy moms manage our time, our mental load, and our well-being as whole women as well as mothers.
Yeah, and so what Aashika didn't mention is that MAMMA-MIYA, which started in India, is now in 127 countries. And Aashika is working in an all-female team, including the tech development. And what you also might not know is that they have over 20,000 app downloads. But it all started with a WhatsApp group. And our second guest is Folake Owodunni.
Hi everyone, I'm Folake Owodunni from Nigeria. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Emergency Response Africa, which is a health tech company that saves lives by connecting people to emergency help close to them. I am also the winner of the 2023? I don't know what year, but the Aurora Tech Award. I'm so super excited to be here.
Actually, she was the 2024 winner of the Aurora Tech Award. Emergency Response Africa as a business has addressed over 7,000 incidents, trained over 2,000 people in first aid and CPR, and expanded their network across 9 states in Nigeria. And Folake has raised over $100,000 for her startup. And our third guest is Gulnaza Khalmanbetova.
Hello everyone, I'm Gulnaza Khalmanbetova. I'm the founder of Mama Space. It's a femtech platform supporting expectant and new mothers. And we provide emotional, educational, and peer support through our application, combining local culture with global medical standards.
Gulnaza is from Kyrgyzstan, and she's earlier on in her journey, but in the last year has managed to go from working full-time and building the business to being able to be full-time on her business. The startup was only launched in the summer of 2024 on a bootstrap, and she invested in it whilst working at another job to support the project. So from a near-death experience in her own pregnancy, Gulnaza started Mama Space in 2024. Since then, the team has already supported over 8,000 women from over 30 countries in preparing for childbirth. We had a great conversation, so let's just dive into it. So, pretty random question, but where are all of your kids right now?
Well, two of them, my two human kids, are at school, thankfully, which is why there's silence.
I have two boys. My elder one, it's summer and he's in summer break, so there's no school, but my parents agreed to help, so he's at my parents' place. But my younger one, he is in the kindergarten, so I will run right after the podcast.
Yeah. Folake, where are your children at the moment?
Fortunately, both at school. Otherwise, they would definitely make an appearance.
And I think another question here, just to like ascertain the reality of like building, I think with kids, is what's probably one of the most dramatic incidents where you were in like a work context and your kids were like, I don't really care. I'm gonna step in here, or you know, where I guess it really threw you off.
Well, I mean, I have kind of the typical kids walking in, maybe in, you know, sort of all states of undress. But the one that happened pretty recently was somehow my son, he's 9, got on my Zoom and changed my video image to an avatar. And this is an avatar of a fox. And when that happened, I didn't know. So the next time I joined a Zoom meeting, I was a talking fox, and this was a big meeting. I mean, people laughed. It was great, but it was not fun.
I think mine was when I was pitching to a VC, and my older one was just in a really grumpy mood, and she walks in and she's like, she's not really interested in this. She just wants to do her work and doesn't want to listen to you. No. And I was like, because I grumble a little bit about these investor calls sometimes. And she kind of came in and said exactly that. And I was like, oh not really.
Oh, no.
I mean, fair play though. Like, you know, your child speaks the truth.
That's what I love about children, is I think they bring the truth to the surface, whether you like it or not, and they make you face it all the time.
Cool. So the reason I wanted to kind of start with that is because, and I'm really curious to get you guys' take on this, but actually I find that the women that are mothers that are building are actually more efficient and are better founders in a lot of ways than if not. And so I guess like the question of this podcast is, what role did motherhood play in launching your business?
I think for me, you know, I have a background in public health. I've always been interested in healthcare access, but I was not really aware of the emergency care problem until my son had an emergency. And this was like when he was a baby. So it was one of those, he woke up in the night screaming in pain, just obviously something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what it was. And fortunately for us, we were outside of Nigeria. We were in Canada, and we were able to call 911. And, you know, kind of just going through that experience and having, you know, the dispatcher on the phone supporting me and the paramedics showing up and being able to take care of him. And just, I mean, I think I was just blown away by the fact that this system existed, and something that I had only grown up seeing in the movies was actually real and functioning and available to me. And it got me thinking about, you know, my experience. If I had been in Nigeria, I'd probably have to like beg my neighbor to drive us to the hospital. And, you know, on the way there, I would be just freaking out about, you know, is the hospital going to be ready and able to treat him? So I think that really opened my eyes to the fact that this was a problem, and this was a problem that wasn't really being solved in a tangible, scalable way. And I think just the fact that it was so personal, right? Like, this is my first child. This is, you know, my son. So I think, you know, I always say like he played a big role, you know, in things getting started.
That's such an inspirational origin story. And while I think most businesses have some form of that, it's, I think what you had to pull through to take it to execution, because it's a wonderful idea, but to be able to take that to execution is really, it's quite exemplary, Folake. That's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so kind of you to say.
I remember my mom's best friend was, she had, I think, 6 kids or something. And she would always, I think she and her husband would alternate 6 months at a time to work. And she said whenever she was actually pregnant, she would make sure she was working, because she said those were her creative spurts. She's like, your body is in creation mode. You're so deeply aligned with, you know, creation at its core, at a universal level, that I think that stuck in my head when I was maybe 15 or 16. So I feel like with every baby I've actually created, like the first one was MAMMA-MIYA, the second one was a conservation project. So I actually encourage women not to step away, but step into their careers even more once you do become, because it's almost biological or energetic that your ability to create is on a whole new level when you become a mom. I wanted to add where I do feel like the time involved is maybe more difficult when you are a mother, but I feel like the intentionality that comes in with your time and your energy is probably super powered when you become a mother. I feel like the balance is forced. So it's a beautiful way to cut off because nobody really gives a hoot about what your day was like, whether it was, you had the best meeting in the world with somebody or it was an absolute disaster. When your kids are home, they're hungry, they want to talk about their day, it kind of forces you to switch off. So I think that's also like actually quite a gift of motherhood. And I think efficiency is quite extreme. When I started, I literally put up photographs of my kids at the office and I still have them there as a reminder of anything I'm doing needs to be so valuable, so worth it for me and for everybody I'm building for, that it's worth being away from my children, right? So I feel like that really keeps kind of centering me back to why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Honestly, you're so right, Aashika. Like it has to be worth it. I wouldn't put in all this effort for most things. I feel like that's something that should give, whether it's investors or funders or partners, confidence that, okay, I may not fully know what this person is doing or fully understand it yet, but the fact that they are in this life stage and do this probably means that there's something here.
I also wanted to share how it all started. So my idea also started from my personal experience and personal pain. With my first pregnancy, I realized how alone I was and how much support I needed. And that's how I saw the problem, and I created my own community of moms, turned into annual big conference for moms called Mama Fest. But with my second pregnancy, I had some health challenges and I had to go through 5 surgeries while I was pregnant with my second one. And all of this was happening without anesthesia. And I was thinking, how did I end up being here? I have education, I read books, and I know all of that. But the problem was that I didn't have enough information that could help me to get those red flags of my body and understand my body. And that's how I created Mama Space.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. And in the beginning, I was looking at it at just a side project, and I was working full time and working on Mama Space during the weekends and at night because we didn't have lots of investments, so we could hire people. So based on my enthusiasm, I gathered a group of people who volunteered their time to build Mama Space. And it was a side project. And then I started seeing that this is going big. And starting from February, I'm full-time on Mama Space right now. So I quit my job and I'm focused on Mama Space.
Sorry, just going to jump in there. Gulnaza, remind us how long you've been actually building.
1 year. So the idea was from my second pregnancy. Then I spent 1.5 years thinking about that. Then I joined some events here for startup founders. There was some pitching contests. Of course, I didn't win anything. I got only criticized, but still I was following my mission and vision. And not getting that support that I was looking for, I decided to put my money on it. And then when we had the product out, we started receiving some attention and people started using our product. And I think it took about 6 months to prove myself and others that we can do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I guess this is related to what Gulnaza has shared, our first ever pitch or pitch opportunity. This was in 2019, I believe. Yeah, 2019. We had just, started. I had spent maybe 3 months just researching, putting thoughts down on paper. I hadn't really done anything yet. It was just a thought in my head. And then an opportunity came through a program that I was in. I was doing a graduate program at the time and working full time, but I was also pregnant with my daughter. And so there was a lot going on, but, this sort of social impact pitch competition just popped up. And I was like, this sounds so aligned with what I'm thinking of. I'm just going to throw in an application. And then, several weeks later, I got a message that I had been accepted. And then I was like, the pitch was literally maybe 1 month or 3 weeks before my daughter was due. And so it was okay, am I doing this? But I remember thinking, okay, well, we've come this far, we might as well. And if she happens to come early, then, it is what it is. And so, yeah, I went. I remember it was March of 2019. I went for this pitch competition with my huge belly, with all these 19-year-olds around me. It was pretty funny. But I pitched and, I love what Naza said. I didn't win anything, nothing sort of big came out of it. But I think that experience of just taking the step and putting an idea out there and having it being validated by actually giving us the platform to pitch, present, gave me a sense of, okay, there is something here and it is worth pursuing.
When I was just starting at the idea stage, I actually saw news about Aurora Tech Award and I started reading stories. And I remember reading Folake's story too. And I got inspired because I was like, oh, being a woman and doing startup and getting all those awards, this is so cool. Can I do it? At that moment, I challenged myself because I really wanted to see myself in that list. And I actually put it as a goal for 2025, which happened.
Oh,
So.
Yes. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm clapping for you. That's awesome.
yeah, I definitely align with you guys. I feel like maybe what resonates across for all of us is it's literally like a spark of an idea that feels like it's so closely linked to your own personal story. And then almost following that journey, right? Like, I think for me, one of those critical moments was when I was with a group of moms and we'd all kind of just met up, and some of the smartest women I knew, right? They were like, we were all asking each other, so what do you do? How old is your kid? What do you do? And then so many of them were like, oh, I'm just a mom. And I thought to myself, like, what does I'm just a mom mean, right? Like, it's a hell of a thing to be a mom. And I could see that everybody who said it with some level of like, I don't want to say shame because then maybe that's too strong, but it is in that spectrum, I think, of feelings. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why should we have to be ashamed about whichever journey we take through motherhood, right? Like whether we choose to work or whether we choose not to work. Mm-hmm. I think all narratives of competition, this, that, all kind of really need to be phased out. And like MAMMA-MIYA for me started as a WhatsApp group with 5 moms. I just needed support to figure out how do I get back into the workspace. Then it was 1,000 people Facebook group. And then I was like, okay, clearly there's something that's calling that needs to be solved. And that's why it kept growing. I keep calling myself like a bit of an accidental entrepreneur. I feel like when you go with that energy and you kind of follow that path, it opens up far more beautifully than when you have to meet 100 VCs and then you get rejected 99 times. I don't know. I feel like all of those are one way to build a business, and there's a whole another way which is a little bit more intuitive. It went, like I said, WhatsApp group, Facebook group, then like it was supposed to be a book, then it turned into an app. Now it's suddenly apparently like a global business. I don't know. I'm just following the pull every day in the direction that I feel like if there is a need and you truly service that need with absolute authenticity and love for the end consumer, I feel like that's like a core way to actually build, I don't think any of us started with profitability in mind or building like global businesses, right? But you're deeply trying to solve something that you can resonate with and resonates with women around you who you like love and admire, right?
Yeah, so I want to jump in on that because there's something that we've been thinking a lot about, the Aurora thesis, like, well, who is an Aurora founder? And I think having been in like the very traditional world of venture capital, most VCs, frankly, would look at a lot of your businesses and be like, this is not VC backable. This is not global, because they don't understand it. And I think this is so important to whoever listens. Like, even if so many people around you are like, this is a stupid idea. Like, there's not a need for this. Do you know what I mean? But you trust that gut, like MAMMA-MIYA, like Mama Space, like what you're building for Folake. You're not building for everyone. You're building for very specific people. And something that I know about each of your businesses is your loyalty rates are really high, which says so much about the detail and the understanding of the customer that you're building for. And I was speaking to my partner about this, and in a way, you're going to hate me for this, but I'm kind of happy that businesses like yours don't raise, because I actually think it makes you focus on, well, what should this actually be versus just like throw money at it, which I've seen a lot of not necessarily great entrepreneurs do. And, when I look into each of your businesses, like, it's so cool that you've built this really niche, but it's a niche that's actually globally received. So I think that's such a important part of this is that even if other people are not saying it's traditionally right, the fact that all of you doubled down and were like, no, I'm going to build this anyway. And like, look at what you've done. Like, look at the number of people that you've impacted. Like, look at how you've grown. Like, it's unbelievable. So yeah, I think that's
Can I just make a comment on that? I think like, as I don't know if it's an ecosystem thing or just like generally, I think we really need to move away from the idea that this like VC backable is the gold standard.
100%.
Because the reality is it doesn't make sense for a lot of, in fact, I would say the vast majority of businesses. Like that is simply, it's just not a fit. And I think we're just kind of in a world where, you know, that's become the sexiest thing. And that's, you know, that's where everybody wants to be. I remember someone telling me very early on, don't go after VC or you'll be making a mistake. And this is somebody who is by far one of the most respected investors in the African space. And I didn't listen. You know, I was like, okay, sure. And then I kind of went on my way, but then consistently hearing the message of, well, I'm not even sure how good of a fit this is for VC. And eventually I had to come to the conviction of, you know what, we're creating a new market. We're doing something that does not exist at scale. There are clear examples where it can be VC backable, but those conditions as of today don't yet exist in my market. And so it is not an insult if someone says this is not that today, because that's the truth. Instead, what we need are investors that understand that and also understand the journey that it takes from, you know, sort of de-risking a new market to getting to the point where VC can come in and accelerate. So anyway, I just, you know, had to throw that in there because I think there's this mindset that somehow VC backable is the gold standard, and it just isn't.
Can I please jump in here? Just this morning, I had a inbound like VC kind of call, and like it's something that I've put on the back burner a little bit because I completely agree with you. I think I didn't want to go down the VC route in the beginning because I feel like I have such a deep understanding of my user and their needs that I feel like for example, in MAMMA-MIYA, I feel like balancing productivity and well-being is critical and equally important. Whereas the minute I'm speaking to VCs, they're like, no, you know, focus on productivity, solve one problem really well, then expand. And I'm like, but no mother wants to be a robot, right? Like, it was something that I really stuck my boots into the sand. I was like, I'm not moving with this particular thing of balancing the two because I really strongly believe that it is our job as entrepreneurs to build a product that our users love and are willing to pay for. It is not our job to chase VCs. It is their job to chase founders who have built a product that their users love. And I feel like you land up then spending your time, changing your efforts, you know, even changing the direction of your pitch because you're suddenly then doing it to please, you know, okay, today AI is what we all need to be talking about, so stick it in there. But maybe, hey, mums are, you know, slower adopters of tech. I don't need to do it in the same pace that the VC wants to hear it at, right? And today I'm realizing it works, right? I'm no longer chasing. I'm kind of getting all of these inbound leads and I'm entirely focusing on what can you bring beyond money to the table to help me grow this business, right? And I think you're only in that position of strength when you have actually built something that users love and that you have the confidence to back.
Yeah, exactly. It was also one of the biggest challenges for me raising investments as a woman and as a mother, because in many conversations, I feel like I had to prove twice as much that I'm committed, that I can build and scale, and that motherhood doesn't make me less of a founder. But on the other side, actually, motherhood is what helped me to come up with this idea, to understand the people that I want to help and to build the product. And I think I agree with all what has been said, because I think it's also about building a product, using all your energy to focus on the product and the users, and only after to expect interested investors to come, in our case.
Yeah. Folake, like what you communicated much more eloquently than I have is exactly the direction we're taking Aurora in, which is like precisely like, what does VC backable mean? Like, the model doesn't actually work. It doesn't work. Like financially, it doesn't even work. But what do we define founders like you? There's no category that comes to mind when I speak about the types of businesses that you're building. But I do think you're building a new category of what it means to be a great entrepreneur and what it means to build a great business. And that doesn't necessarily exactly mean like VC backable. And you guys are kind of testament to that.
I feel like if you look at the stats with VCs, right, what is their failure rate? A founder's failure rate is maybe 1 out of 3 at most, right? You try three times, you're likely to at least get it right once. But like a VC's failure rate is what, 1 out of 50 or 1 out of... It's a ridiculous number. So I feel like it's, sometimes maybe your own intuition about building a business or what you learn. I mean, what I did is I kept going back to schooling. Like, I mean, I keep learning to upgrade my knowledge rather than to go on the narratives that I feel like right now we're living in this time of VC-backed thing. But I feel like I keep going back to like, how do you build a digital business? How do you, build a brand? I feel like those are things that you go into the 101 and the core of it and really flesh it out for yourself rather than just doing it with this objective of only scale, right? I just don't think it stands on as strong a foundation when it's being done to please an investor rather than being done to actually bring value to your consumer.
And actually on that point of the building piece and the learning piece, I actually can't remember which of you are of technical background, but where there were like technical elements to the businesses that you were building. I mean, Aashika, I've met your co-founder, so I know she does the technical sides, but do you have any lessons learned or stories of where you either had to like trust someone else to bring in that technical knowledge or you like learned it yourself and it wasn't as actually hard as you thought?
Go ahead, please. I was going to say you should go because technical means a whole different thing in your space. Go open, Dad.
Well, so I was fortunate to meet my co-founder as a part of a program the graduate program that I was in. And she came from a tech background and had also had her own personal experience losing a family member in an emergency in Ghana. So different country, same West Africa, same problem. And she kind of had the understanding of the role that technology could play. So I think the coming together, definitely, a bit of like selling the idea or selling the dream. But the fact that she understood it on a personal level, I think made a huge difference in that I didn't have to explain to her why the problem was important. But yes, there was an element of trust that was needed from the beginning because the truth was I really didn't know what she could or couldn't do. I also didn't have the knowledge to effectively assess that anyway. So yeah, we definitely went in on trust and fortunately she turned out to be a great person as an individual, but also a really strong technical person in the sense that the skills she already had, but the things that she didn't have, she was able to go and learn or go and figure out or get someone who had them to make sure that the job got done. So I think I absolutely lucked out. I don't like to say luck. I'm Christian. I love to say, very God ordained because honestly, a lot of how we came together really could not have been planned. It couldn't. So, and we've been working together now for 6-7 years. So yeah. I think Naza, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Naza, you were going to say something.
Yeah, it was the limited resources. I had my co-founder. He was a CTO, but since we had limited resources, I had to learn many things on the go. When we launched the product, I was studying the UX, UI design, how to do all this onboarding processes and etc. Then we launched it. We had to market it, do some marketing and social media. So I started doing that. And I learned designing and marketing. And when we registered the company, I did the finance. So I was doing everything until the time when it was like too hard to control. And but until we could hire someone, I was doing everything. I think it's just being a mom, cooking, cleaning, washing clothes. It's just like the same as being a founder.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, we're constantly juggling multiple balls. Actually, for me, it was quite funny because my friends laughed at me. Like I was gonna, like I told you after the Facebook group, I was like, okay, moms need this place where they can plan their days and, live more fulfilled stuff. So I was going to build a book, and all my friends are like, dude, who's going to use a book? We're like millennials now. Give me an app. And I'm like, I don't know anything about tech. How am I going to build an app? And yet I decided, okay, I think you need some kind of stupid level of delusion, I think, to be like, okay, I can figure it out. Like I keep teaching my kids now, if I go to them and I'm like, everything is, and they say figure outable, because I know nothing about technology. But I went to a tech agency. I had to switch over halfway through. Like, oh my God, it was a nightmare. And then I went through, I think, 83 CVs before I found my tech co-founder. And back to your point, Folake, I do believe, I think we all use different words for it, but I call it like synchronicity. And, you know, I think the universe does play a role in finding the right person, the right piece at the right time. And I've seen that happen over and over again on my journey. I think finding a co-founder, finding the right investor. So it's a combination of gut, deep, hard, sincere work. And then suddenly, like when it clicks, you feel like you just got lucky. Like today, I'm looking for an AI expert. And of course, so is the whole world, including like countries' defense systems. And it's the hardest thing when you're a small startup to find an AI expert. But I'm finding them. I mean, you learn, like Nasa said, on the way, you're constantly picking up skill sets you never thought you'd know. But of course, I know I can't. I keep saying when someone better comes to the table, I'll step back from that. But till that someone better comes, I need to handle it. And now I'm like, while we're looking for like a co-founder in the US, I'm talking to women who are in their 50s and 60s, right? And I'm like, is that too old from a from a tech startup perspective? But then I read this really interesting article about how women tend to, because of this motherhood break, and how we do take things at a different pace because we are mothers, right? We make those choices on a daily basis, that actually women hit the top of their career in their 50s and 60s, right? And these women have the most extraordinary track records, but maybe they didn't crack it at 40, you know, but they cracked it to a whole nother level with a whole incredible set of experience, but also so much more perspective, so much more wisdom. I think all of that comes in beyond just the hard work and the intelligence, right? I think startups require a tremendous amount of wisdom in the way you think through things, a tremendous amount of perspective when, 8 out of 10 plans bomb and you still have to come up with the 2 more. I feel like it's a real combination. And maybe for mothers, because we take those breaks where we slow things down, it comes at a different pace. So I still know nothing about tech, but I have never failed to find the right person to come in and handle that technical skill set. And to be honest, they're all still mothers. I've tried to keep that part authentic, because I feel like mothers just have a bullshit detector that's very, very sharp. So I feel like, she can tell in your product, in your content, in your visual, if it's not absolutely authentic. And so I keep trying to do this for moms by moms approach. And we've never actually had a gap that we haven't been able to fill with an absolutely extraordinary mother.
Amazing.
I was just thinking of like a quote of like a productivity t-shirt, and like, I wish I was productive as like a full-time mom, or I wish I was productive as a full-time mom with a business. I think a lot of what we've discussed is super positive and powerful and all the words, but fundamentally, like, there's a lot on all of your plates, and like, congratulations on kind of managing that. I guess on the weeks or days where perhaps you don't feel the flow, or you're a bit like, you're feeling bad as a mom, you're feeling bad to yourself, you're feeling bad as I don't know, whatever the thing might be, how do you get out of that? What would be the thing that you do to kind of recenter yourself, I suppose, or understand actually where the priorities are when you have so many competing ones?
I'd love to jump in here. I feel like this is an area that it's quite core to both to MAMMA-MIYA, and now I think it's kind of our philosophy at MAMMA-MIYA, and it's now become a big part of my life philosophy. So for example, I've gone through a really rough patch in the last, I want to say, couple of years. I'm now single parenting, got a conservation trust that's just fallen onto my lap in the middle of all of this. And there are days that are really, really hard. And that's when I feel like the philosophy of MAMMA-MIYA, which is you have to take a little bit of time every single day for yourself, regardless of how busy or how empty your days are, has really kind of come into my DNA so much that even on absolutely low days, I will make sure I know. So for example, in MAMMA-MIYA, every time you check off something that you complete, we kind of encourage you to track your energy. Did it energize you or did it tire you out, right? And through that, like, my entire exercise or self-care routine has been built around the fact that for me, it's yoga and meditation, right? I've realized from few times a week, it's become a daily, like, almost obsession, because I know I show up so differently if I do it on a day when I have a lot to get done, and on a day when everything feels like it's stuck and I have nothing to do, and I'm feeling even worse than having too much to do because there's nothing going on those days, I still make sure I stick to that routine of the yoga and the meditation and maybe, like a long walk in the park or the things that like really energize me. So I do those regardless of how empty or full the day is. And then that's on a day-to-day basis, right? But I think with entrepreneurship, it takes so grueling in so many ways. Like, while my personal life is blowing up, my co-founder is reassessing whether she has the capacity to keep going forward, because it really like takes the stuffing out of you in so many ways, and you're not earning as much as you can. You have so many competing priorities. I actually took a long full break. This time I took off to the Himalayas for like 10, 12 days, and I just shut down everything. I was like, I'm going to reassess whether I still want to keep going or whether I actually want to just pause or pivot or change direction. Because I think it's equally important to be really honest with yourself. I think passion and perseverance are typical narratives in founder life, but it's equally important to kind of reassess and see, are you still heading in the right direction? Is it going to be what you want? And I literally put it on the plate, and I'm like, even if there's no success at the end of this journey, even if it's absolute failure at the end, even if it's halfway from what I imagined, even if it's double what I imagined, would I still want to be doing what I'm doing? And every time you take that time off to kind of reassess it, I think you come back with a certain clarity. And I really strongly encourage all founders at early stages or whatever stages is relevant to kind of take that time off. And if you fall, if you break, your whole business breaks. So I think the primary thing to look after is yourself. And then your business can only move forward from there. Sorry, long rant, but topic that's pretty close to my.
That's great.
Great.
I think you made me think about a decision I took at the end of last year. In like late November and kind of through December, I just found myself having a series of strange health experiences. I've always kind of had headaches and migraines sort of on and off through my life, but it became like intense, constant, could not get rid of it. Seemed to be having issues with my eyes. At one point I went to like an eye clinic and I almost completely passed out because my blood pressure crashed. It just all sorts of weird things. I mean, I knew I was stressed, but I don't think I realized just how stressed I was. And like you're saying, Aashika, like how little time I actually took for myself, mentally, physically, all the above. And so by the time I was done with last year, I was done, like physically and mentally and emotionally. And I don't think I had ever felt that way before. I was truly burnt out. And it's hard too, right? Like when you're a founder, you're trying to sort of keep up a brave face for your team, and, you have all your reporting requirements that you still have to meet. And I mean, that like nothing stops just because you do, right? At least that's how it feels. But I think it was really clear to me that something needed to change. So in December, I took a decision that I wanted to get a coach. And it's not cheap. So it was a decision that I had to take, and seeing it as a business expense worth making, or if, I would even rephrase that, an investment that the business needed to make in me so that I could actually be my best for the sake of the business. And so, again, I couldn't necessarily do a year's worth of coaching, but I could do 3 months. And that's what I did. And so for the first 3 months this year, I got, this amazing coach, a woman as well who had worked in the startup world for a really long time and who just understood, how to sort of create that space where I could go and just talk about my problems as a founder and a leader that I really didn't have anywhere else. And, there's peer mentoring and, I have founder friends, and those are amazing settings for, certain conversations. But this was different. So it's something that I think, is just so valuable for founders. And it's also something that we don't invest in enough, especially as women. We think of these things as expenses and taking away from the business, and almost like a selfish choice. and I had to sort of fight and say, okay, well, if I drop dead today, right, because we're still so, young and not yet fully mature, the business is eventually going to die. And so, no, I have to make this choice, and it's not a selfish choice. It's actually the right choice, not just for me and my family, but also for the business.
I also do therapy regularly. I just feel like it should be a necessity. I feel like I love the idea of coaching, but I feel like, for entrepreneurs, it's just, there's so many, and it's quite a solo journey. So I feel like I love my therapist. I think she brings me a great sense of balance. I lean on a lot of my founder friends and my mentors as well. I feel like a lot of women mentors, I have both actually, but while the men mentors are pretty amazing as well, technically, I feel like my female mentors are constantly kind of reminding me of periods where when I had like depression, prenatal depression, she was like, she said something as simple as there are 5 gears and you must learn to operate on all of them. There's not only 5th and 1st, you must learn to use 2nd, 3rd and 4th at different phases of your life. She's like, keep the ship afloat, don't let it sink. But it doesn't mean you have to operate at 5th gear all the time. And on the same hand, when my kids are going through a hard time, she's like, you know what? Nothing's going to stop if you put more time into your kids right now. This is what they need most. And then at other times when my child was like 3 and I had this really big accelerator program and my presentation was scheduled for the same day as my daughter's birthday, I was like dying of guilt. And she's like, don't worry about it. I just told my kid, I changed her birthday and she was 3 and she didn't know the difference. And I celebrated extra large on a slightly different day, but it didn't make a difference to her because the date didn't matter. That matters to you. So I feel like my women mentors have come in with some incredible balance of technical brilliance and know-how, but also just real life, all the shit we need to find ways to balance. So yeah, I think it takes a village, and I feel like there's nothing more important to invest in. Even more so than investing. I think the greatest investment in yourself is the investment in your village. So I highly recommend that for all founders, all mothers, all women.
There were some moments when you're sitting you are at the important meeting and you're having a great discussion, you're thriving, and then you get a call from kindergarten saying, oh, something happened, come to the kindergarten ASAP. And this kind of situations hit emotionally. And as a woman and being a mom, I've chosen to put my family first, and I accepted that my startup journey may look different. And Mama Space isn't about chasing unicorn status or scaling at fast, crazy speed. And understanding that this is my story and this is what I chose. I want to put my family first and then do my startup. Accepting that helped me to stay stable emotionally in these kind of situations.
So hopefully this episode shows you that building a business while being a mother is possible. And while, yes, it won't always be easy or perfect, it can be more rewarding than you expect. If you know someone who's wondering how motherhood and entrepreneurship fit together, then feel free to share this episode with them. And stay tuned, because we've got a lot of inspiring conversations coming your way. So thank you for listening to Women in the Building. This podcast was produced by Libo Studio. My name is Bella, I'm your host, and I'll see you in the next episode.